What is up, everybody? It is Viper Parlay, and today we're going to be talking about the Figueiredo versus Benavidez 2 preliminary and main card events and results. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. This was an amazing card. So to kick off the preliminaries, we had Sergey Spivak versus Carlos Felipe. And when the fight had started, Felipe came out. He was shaking his head a lot. He was moving his hands a lot. And although that may have scared a few people and it may have looked effective, like he was ready, in reality, he didn't really do a lot of scoring. And what Spivak was able to do is jab effectively. He would throw his knee sometimes. His right hand was really active. Felipe was talking a lot of mess, but it really didn't bother Spivak. What he was able to do is score a takedown early during the final round. And what he did was just ground strikes from there. And it was really effective. And so Felipe, he was able to make it back to his feet, but once again, he got thrown to the mat and he was mounted a few moments later. Spivak kept up with the strikes, very effective, and he made it very evident that he had not only taken the round but the fight as a whole. So the results, scores were 29-27 for two judges and 28-28 for Spivak. So now Spivak is at 11-2 and Felipe is down to 8-1. I had Spivak winning that one, so luckily that cashed in. Now we're going to be moving on to one of my favorite fights of the night, Arman Tsarukyan versus Davy Ramos, and my goodness, what a fight. Absolute dominance by Tsarukyan. He didn't really leave any kind of decision out there, so both fighters are very well known for their grappling, but really what ended up happening is they did very hard striking in the early rounds. So Tsarukyan was holding an edge thanks to his great speed, and he had a variety of shots. Like, he was coming from every angle, different kind of punches and kicks. The fight even went to the mat before the midway point of the first round, and Ramos, he was comfortable working off of his back as Tsarukyan kept throwing punches from the top position. That was interesting. And then with 40 seconds left, about 35 to 40 seconds left, Tsarukyan let him up, and then basically they just stayed standing till that horn. So what we saw was Ramos had increased his level of aggression. He kept kind of provoking Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan was smart. He kept circling outside, and he kept his cool under that pressure. He kept the strikes coming. I think he also scored a brief takedown as well. And so the scores were 30-27 with two judges, and then 29-28 for Tsarukyan. His score is now 15-2, and Ramos is now 10-4. And with Tsarukyan, I really think he has a bright future. This kid is 23. He's really displayed that he's not only athletic, but he absolutely knows what he's doing. So we're definitely going to love seeing more of him soon. And he was also my pick, so thankfully that cashed in as well. Even though a lot of people were saying that this card is very hard to, bet on and figure out what fighter's going to win, I was able to come out positive for the night, so that was really interesting. And so, I had a good feeling about this kid, and it really paid dividends. And now we're going to be moving forward with Amir Albazi versus Malcolm Gordon, and my goodness, what an interesting outcome. So it was a first round triangle choke. That was amazing. So basically what had happened was about 2 minutes in, Albazi had brought the fight to the mat, and there was about a little bit over a minute left, and he was able to get into the mount position. He did some strikes on the head, and Gordon had given up his back and tried to scramble to the top position, but what had happened was he had ended up in a triangle choke by Albazi, and he forced the tap out at literally 4:42 of round one, which was absolutely amazing. This kid is talented, and I think he's here to stay as well, so we'll be seeing more of him. He was also my pick, so luckily that cashed in as well, so we did pretty good so far in the card. After that fight, we had Brett Johns versus Montel Jackson, and this one was the first L of my night, so I was hoping that Montel Jackson would win. This fight, it did go the distance. It was a very competitive three-rounder. Montel Jackson, he was able to use those hands to control the wrists of Johns, but really it just wasn't enough. Johns really kind of out-wrestled him, out-grappled him. He had a lot of control. Johns is now 17-2 and Jackson is now 9-2. So moving right along, now we have Joseph Duffy versus Joel Alvarez. And this one was a little bit hard to call, but I did have Alvarez down. I had a feeling that he would take it. I was a little confused why he was such an underdog. Maybe because Joseph Duffy is such a well-known name, or he's better known at least. But really what had happened was both fighters were really focusing on leg kicks for the first minute or two. And then a little while later, Duffy was, he just decided to make things go to a takedown. And that actually ended up screwing him over. So Alvarez was able to get that guillotine choke as the fight went to the mat, and it forced Duffy to tap out at about 2 minutes and 25 seconds into the opening round. And so with that win, Alvarez is now 17-2, and Duffy, who actually announced his retirement, so that was interesting, he falls to 16-5. So yeah, moving right along. The next fight was Grant Dawson versus Nad Nurmani. But really what had happened with this fight was Grant Dawson had really the more dominant of the 3 rounds, and it led to a unanimous decision. The scores were 30-26, 30-27, and 29-27 for Dawson, who's now 16-1, and Nurmani fell to 12-4. And so basically, Dawson's striking was absolutely next level. He had flying knees going, he had kicks, flying kicks, and basically he was just able to dominate Nurmani, and that ended up being a unanimous decision for him. So, definitely going to be keeping our eyes on Dawson for a good while. The next fight that we had was Roman Dolidze versus Khadis Ibragimov, and this was quite a fight. So it only was into the first round and it was done. Dolidze, he was very, very strong. He was provoking Ibragimov a lot. So, his facial expressions, his taunts, they were very, very interesting. But really what had happened was that Dolidze had unleashed a left high kick, and the knee had caught Ibragimov dead on his face. So he just dropped instantly. He didn't know what was going on. He was just looking around like, whoa, what's going on? Dolidze let out a roar, and that was it. So really, it was on the 4-minute 15 mark of the opening round. And with that, Dolidze moves to 7-0. Very interesting prospect. We are definitely going to keep our eyes on him. And Ibragimov falls to 8-3, unfortunately. And with that, we are now at our main card. So we had Askar Askarov versus Alexandre Pantoja, and this was another L of the night. I had Pantoja winning, but what really happened was it was a unanimous decision and Askar had just won. I feel like Pantoja wasn't really smart with his energy and his output. Right off the bat, he was extremely in a rush to try to get the fight over. He tried to do like a guillotine choke seconds in, but it just did not work. And then after that, Askar was able to slow things down and be a little bit more calculative. He had better grappling and better striking. Some people said it was, controversial. They felt like it was a robbery, but I disagree. I feel like Askar did win, even though I wanted Pantoja to win. But, Askar was the victor there. And then up next we had Ariana Lipski versus Luana Carolina. And my goodness, let this picture right here define the night. Look at that. She had her knee messed up, and you could just see the pain on Carolina's face. It was ridiculous, but Lipski showed dominance. It was the first 30 seconds of the fight, and she scored a knockdown, and then she just kept on top. We were a bit nervous, the commentators and even the viewers, we were like, what is going to happen? It was an awkward position on the ground, but Lipski was able to turn that into a crazy knee bar, and she got it. And so there was a tap out at 1 minute 28 seconds of the very first round. I had Lipski winning, and that cashed in. It was amazing. Moving right along, we had Rafael Fiziev versus Mark Diakisi, and my goodness, this was a huge L for me. I had Mark Diakisi winning that fight. I felt like he would win, but unfortunately, he just didn't show up. And Rafael Fiziev, he was absolutely dominant. You could hear those kicks from countries away. I am so serious. You usually hear that kind of whipping when you're training and things like that, but he was just going at it, and I feel like that took a huge toll on Diakisi's fight. Even though he tried, Diakise tried towards the end to swing and keep up, but it just was too much. And Fiziev, he's absolutely someone I'm going to be looking at in the future. I completely overlooked him and regret it. So the scores were 30-27, and there was 29-28, 29-28. Fiziev won. He's now 8-1, and Diakise is now 14-4. So that was disappointing, but moving right along, we had Jack Hermansson versus Kelvin Gastelum, and everyone was going for Kelvin Gastelum. But when you just look at the height, the reach advantage that Jack had, you would know instantly that Gastelum would be in trouble. We've seen Gastelum in the past have trouble with guys of that stature, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So Hermansson, he went for an early takedown. Gastelum reversed the move, and you would think he put himself into control, but Hermansson, maybe it was part of his plan, but within seconds, he locked that heel, and he ended the fight at 118 of the opening round. It was absolutely dominant. Luckily, I had Hermansson just based off of his height and his reach and knowing Kelvin's weakness. So basically with that win, the number 6 ranked Hermansson moved to 21-5, and Gastelum is now 16-6 and 1 no count. So that's kind of tough for Gastelum. He's been kind of on a L streak. So, but it was great for us. Whoever made that call, we really cashed in on that. And so now for the main event, the most exciting fight for me in the night, it was Figueiredo versus Benavidez 2. Figueiredo really left no doubt in this fight. The first fight, it was kind of a controversy, like, oh, there was a headbutt, that's why he was able to land that punch and this and that. Well, Figueiredo, he was able to knock down Benavidez multiple times. He was able to out-grapple him. He had, his back controlled a lot, and he was able to get that submission as a result. And so it was a rear naked choke, and it ended the fight. It stopped at about 4:48 of round 1, and with that, Figueiredo moved 19-1, and Benavidez fell 28-7. Saw a lot of people on social media going in on Benavidez, making fun of him and making a Levy. It was really, really messed up. Let's try to be good sportsmanships about this, good sportsmen's rather. But Figueiredo deserved that W. He really earned it. So this card, a lot of people said it was very hard to call, but I was able to make about 53% profit from it. So it was really interesting. This was just a really brief video to go over what happened throughout the fights and the night. Nothing too detailed, but we have other videos coming up. We know that there's Whitaker versus Till coming on Saturday, so we'll be discussing that, going through that. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and join us on our journey. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. We're going to be talking about odds, strategies, not just the UFC, but we'll talk about the NBA a little bit as well. So I look forward to this journey with you guys. Thank you so much for checking it out, and see you guys real soon.